Hi, everybody. Welcome to the QB School. I'm JT O'Sullivan. Today, new series, Life in the League, and really life getting into the league with today's video. This is all about combine prep. What are you doing? How do you prepare for the NFL Combine? Probably the most rigorous, intense job interview any of these guys will ever have. We're going to talk about it, break down every single phase. Should be a good one. Let's get it going. Welcome to the QB School. All right, so today we're talking combine preparation. Again, for a lot of these guys, you got to think that this is really the first real job they've ever had. And really what I mean by that is just preparing for the combine is in itself a job. And so you're basically, you hope it is, a handful of guys are probably still going to school, but the vast majority of people, myself included, planned to kind of be done with school at the end of fall to be able to really prioritize this training. And so this training starts the second your senior or your last college football season is over. And then you are into combine preparation. Now, if you're fortunate enough to be invited to the combine, because not everybody is, it's, I want to guess, around 300-ish. I'm sure someone will tell me the exact number, but it's probably double the amount of guys who get drafted. So it's a big pool for people who are eligible for the draft. And really, once your season is over, as a collegiate football player and you declare for the draft if you're an underclassman, you are in combine prep. And so what does that mean? It's a handful of different things for me. I think of it as really three different phases. So you're going to have what are really the most popular elements of the combine. You're going to prepare for the on-the-field physical tests. So you're going to do the 40, vertical, all those drills to show your explosiveness. You're going to be preparing for those. You're also going to be preparing for the skills element of on the field. So for quarterbacks, you're going to be going through a lot of field work that maybe you weren't used to doing. So you're taking snaps from the center. You're doing 3-step drops, 7-step drops, things that a lot of college football players don't do. You're throwing routes that two wide receivers you've never thrown to before. So all those things is just different type of preparation. So you got the on-field testing, then you got the on-field skills element, and then probably the most important part that you're preparing for are the meetings. And it is an intense kind of couple days of back-to-back-to-back meetings. And it's a combination of roundtable stuff, one-on-one organizational meetings, position coach meetings. So we're going to really break down all of those phases. So first, with probably the most popular, you talk about the 40-yard dash, the on-the-field kind of explosive training. So what does that look like? It's different for every guy. Now, granted, I came out almost 20 years ago for the NFL draft, and so things have gotten a lot better. But even then, when I was coming out, there were opportunities to really kind of hyper-focus your training. So nowadays, the high-end guys, depending on who your agent is, you oftentimes will go somewhere to train. And these are really kind of like Club Med type situations. Not that it's a chill vacation, far from it, but it's basically all inclusive. So you're going to go somewhere with professional trainers. There's a handful of them in Southern California, and you are going to do speed work, strength work, recovery work. Depending on a lot of people, you need an element of recovery for after your college football season. So many people will start before the holidays, but everyone will start after the holidays. So oftentimes you'll go somewhere for a 6 to 8 week period and really focus in on linear speed, talking 40s, we're talking starts, we're talking the back end of the 40 where it's a different type of running. And so all of those things, finishing the 40, all of those things from your it's basically being on the track team. To then being in the weight room, depending on what your position is, you're going to have to go in there and push 225 pounds as many times as you can. And then all of the explosiveness that everyone's going to have to do with broad jump, vertical jump, 3-cone stuff, different shuttle runs, all those things. And you're really going to be able to, nowadays, and even when I was doing it 20 years ago, you really, really hyper-focused on those elements, those tests on the field, because they were you felt, especially when you're in it, that they are the most important thing in the world. And they really are for a handful of different people in different positions. If you play DB, you play wide receiver, there are basically floors that you must clear as far as speed to get a real opportunity in the league. And then if you hit a ceiling or hit a really high score on some of these runs, some of these tests, you all of a sudden can elevate yourself really quickly, a couple rounds. So they are really, really meaningful as far as getting paid and getting drafted and where you fall, if you're a middle of the pack type of type of recruit, from what your film says, if you blow the doors off the 40, you're going to elevate yourself really quickly. So it is important. And so when I was training, everything was about this, just like it is nowadays. Everything is about the start, especially for someone who didn't grow up running track. So it's a combination of your form, everything that I'm not an expert on by any means, but you dive into it for weeks, and hopefully have someone who has the capacity to give you real-time feedback, video feedback, all these things to maximize kind of your body and your explosiveness to be able to run as fast as you possibly can. And for me, I was terrified that I was going to not break 5. I think I ended up in Indianapolis running a 4.89, which was an amazing 4.8 for me. I was excited about it. And I'll tell stories about the combine here more when we get into the combine time. But this element of really doing all sorts of band work, resistance work, all sorts of working on your start, how you come out of your stance, all those things, really important. And really that's carries over into every drill. You basically go through every single drill so many times that you know where your feet are for every quality rep. Is what I mean by that is how many steps you're going to take in the shuttle, how many steps you're going to take in the 3-cone. There's no surprises anymore with the combine, and there shouldn't be, because you're going to prepare for it like it's a job. And that's really what you do. You end up going from being a college student, a student athlete, a college athlete, to really being a professional. And this is the first step. And it's a little strange if you don't go off to one of those Club Med things. If you're training necessarily on your home or at your college campus, there's probably a few guys that think that they're going to have, play professional football and have a pro day and go through all of those. But there's very few guys that are training like elite professional athletes. And what I mean by that is you're doing speed, agility stuff every day. You're in the weight room once or twice every day. You're on the field doing skill specific stuff every single day, and all within being able to take your recovery really seriously, because now you're a professional. Your sleeping habits, your nutrition, your fuel, your weight, your body, what you look like, you're going to be kind of at some point during this evaluation process, you're going to have everything but your underwear on, standing in front of 300 grown men who get paid to evaluate the top athletes in football. And so everything matters when it comes to that. But as far as the on-field agility testing, it's obviously so much time is spent with the 40, your start, resistance bands, your form, your top end speed, finishing through, and that's really carries over to every single drill. But no, you never spend any more time than you do on your 40, and really from there it depends on what your position is. But again, it's building strength, but it's this tight window, right? You only have a handful of weeks before the combines here, before the end of the college football season. And if, let's say, you played in the national championship, it's even tighter to be able to get ready for the combine. So it feels like this really intense window to maximize this opportunity for your strength, for your explosiveness, for your technique in the 40, all those things. And then from there, you really, at the same time, you're preparing for the on the field drills. And again, so for me, for the quarterback wise, you got, there's a handful of different drills you're going to do. You're going to take a 3-step drop. You're going to take a 5-step drop, a 7-step drop. There's a handful of routes you're going to throw just from watching it on TV. You're going to throw a slant. You're going to throw an in, a curl, an out, a comeback, a go, a post corner, all those things. But you're throwing them to guys that you don't know. So it's a little bit unsettling, as far as you control what you can control. You can't control if he drops it, or, if it doesn't come off your hand perfectly. You're not going to get that perfect spiral that everybody loves to see on NFL films, where it like zooms into the ball and then zooms back out to the wide receiver, those type of things, when it looks all fluttery because you're throwing a brand new ball that feels like it's greased up and waxed up because you haven't thrown a lot of NFL balls before, and they might not have broken in the balls, and you don't get to go out there and deflate those suckers. So it's like one of those things where like you're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. And so when you're doing the NFL combine, when you're preparing for it, I remember my agent came up to me and said, hey, they've invited you to be the NFL invites a handful of quarterbacks to stay there for a longer period of time, and you end up throwing to all the other position groups. So when you see the wide receivers doing their stuff, running through a line, and you see all these balls coming from different angles, those are quarterbacks that have stayed for the wide receiver element of that skill work, or the DB work, or the linebacker work. Those are all quarterbacks throwing. And so I thought about doing that. In the end, I declined the invitation, just wanted to focus on my performance, what I can control, not worry about throwing for 5 days in front of the scouts. I see the benefits of both, and I think it's good for a lot of guys, especially smaller college guys who aren't in front of a lot of those scouts all the time. But for me, I'm never going to be I was never going to be a super impressive tryout guy. Like, I'm not going to blow the door off with my fastball or with my velocity. And so I just didn't want to go out there and feel like I wasn't at my absolute peak when I had to be at my peak for that on the field stuff. And so for me, I was a pro type quarterback, already knew how to do those drops from under center. A lot of guys don't know how to do those 3, 5, and 7-step drops from under center. So you end up having to spend a lot of time preparing for the draft in that regard. And nowadays, there's any number of quarterback gurus out there that will prepare you for the draft on the field. And really, you see that kind of then trickle over into the pro day. The pro day is a little bit easier because you get to control the environment. That's why the NFL evaluators love the combine, because they control the environment. They make you uncomfortable, all those type of things. And so there's ways to improve your on-the-field mechanics, throwing, everything gets evaluated from that regard. But in short, most quarterbacks, at least the quarterback position, you're evaluated by your film. Now, you can go out there and disqualify yourself if you go out there and throw sinkers, or you can't complete an out, or you're skipping balls, or the ball's coming off your hand funky every single throw. Will start to raise red flags. But I don't know if you can really elevate yourself by being able to go out there and throw in your underwear at the combine. I think people more just reaffirm what they've already evaluated, or you can disqualify yourself. And so there is pressure in it, no doubt about it. It's important. I think the vast majority of guys nowadays throw, and I think it's a good thing to be able to go out there and compete a little bit, see how everybody else looks like, see what everybody else looks like, especially nowadays because everybody knows each other for one way or another. I knew the vast majority of the guys from being a counselor on like the Elite 11 stuff. It's a small circle of people who play quarterback at a really high level. And so it's that part of it is fun to go out there and compete. And then really the final element of the 3 phases. So the on-the-field agility tests, linear speed, the 40, all those testing. The on-the-field skills test, with the ball, especially for the quarterback position. And then the off-the-field, really preparing for the meeting. So what does that mean, right? Like, you're preparing for a job interview. Well, if you're preparing for a job interview, you're probably going to do some research or look them up a little bit. You might do a simple thing as Google them or check their homepage or check their mission value statement, things like that. Well, this is that on steroids legally. So what I mean by that is you're going to do a deep dive on everybody that you think is looking for a quarterback. If we're talking just quarterbacks here, you have a pretty good idea of the 10-ish teams that probably are looking for a quarterback in the first couple rounds, maybe another like 10-ish teams that you think are looking to maybe have a competition at their backup spot. And then you're going to have kind of just a vague kind of general background elements of every team. So you can communicate, who the coordinators are, who the quarterback coaches are, who the head coaches are, who the GMs are, all of those things. So you don't necessarily, for the first time, you go into a meeting with the Packers and you shake someone's hand, you shake 5 people's hands. Well, you want to at least have heard many of these names before. You don't want to have to go in there and remember 5 strangers' names. So you prepare like that. And I think that's how the vast majority of people prepare. It's definitely how I prepared. And so it made you feel a little bit more comfortable. You might not know these people, but you've heard the name before, their background, their qualifications. You might be able to have a conversation with them. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to do with your background, being able to know a little bit about them, see if you have any common connection points. And so from there, and really the true element, I think there's a combination of things you're going to look for, or they're going to evaluate from the quarterback perspective at the NFL Combine. They're just going to see your presence. They're going to see how you interact with your peers, your colleagues, how you interact with coaches, personnel people. Are you polite? Do you show respect? Are you all of those things that you kind of have to check the box? But there is an element of presence, I think, with the quarterback position that is evaluated unlike other positions. And so can you command the room? Does everybody know when you're in the room? Those type of elements that I think do get evaluated for maybe the first time for a lot of these NFL decision makers at Indy, in the hotel room, when you walk into the suite for the interview at an evening when you are already tired, you've already done your agility stuff, you've already done your testing, all of those things. Now, can you command the room? Can you come in and be the central point and not be shy, not be timid? Look people in the eye and tell them you don't know, things like that. So that's really an important element to be able to grasp and be humble enough to say those type of things. I think you have to practice them, just like any good job interview. I'm sure as everybody who's watching this, if you've had a job interview, you feel like you get better the more job interviews you have. Well, at the NFL Combine, there's only a finite number of teams you can meet with. So you got to choose what teams you want to meet with. If you get offered multiple meetings at the same time, what are you going to do? How are you going to get an opportunity to go in there with the right energy, the right enthusiasm, locked in, ready to go for probably the most important job interview of your life? And so you prepare. And in that, there's a bunch of different ways to prepare, because you know you're going to be asked football questions at some point. You're going to be asked, what's your favorite play? Take us through a play. Can you talk like a coach? Can you be a coach on the field if you're a quarterback? And so just like anything, I'm sure most people watching this are an expert in something. And if you're an expert in something, you can tell right away who is and isn't an expert in the field, really by what kind of questions they ask, how they talk about things, how they describe things. And so it's really, really easy to try to fake some of these people out with how you talk about protections and formations and schemes. Football people can see through that immediately. We all know what the right questions are. We all know where plays, concepts start, reads start from the quarterback position. So you're supposed to be able to go into these, jump on a whiteboard, and be able to own your concepts that you've done all through your college career. So they're looking for command of the offense, football IQ, all those things that they'll be able to kind of make you uncomfortable by asking questions that maybe, when I was in college, I didn't know that much about run blocking, pass protection, knew maybe one or two pass protections, all those things, I'm going to get exposed. And so they're going to try to figure out what your pressure points are and make you feel uncomfortable. And you have to be able to say, like, I don't know that yet. I'm willing to learn. I want to learn. All those type of things I think are really important at the NFL Combine, because they want to see how much football you know. And depending on what program you're in, what kind of coaching you come from, how long you played the position, you're going to come out on a wide spectrum. And then just because you're on the low end of the spectrum, as far as, football jargon, be able to speak it, doesn't mean that you can't learn it and be coached. They get paid to coach. They get paid to evaluate. They just want to know where you're at to be able to get a real snapshot of what they're working with as far as a prospect. And so you want to be honest, but you want to be able to articulate what you believe, what you run, and show the kind of presence and persona that you're going to bring to, for, back in the day, a huddle, but now the position to an organization. You're going to be the face of an organization potentially. They want to get the best feel that they possibly can, and they're going to make you feel uncomfortable. And that going in, they'll still do it, but it's how you react. And so it's about kind of having a plan to not necessarily be reactive, but be proactive in your approach, your preparation, and know these things are coming. And there are a lot of famous people that you probably don't know. I remember sitting around NFL roundtable with 6 or 7 NFL head coaches, and you're just kind of a fan. Like, it's exciting. It's hard to prepare for that. You can prepare for it with your agent and have questions that are probably coming your way, especially if you've got maybe issues in your past or things like that they've got character question marks. They're going to ask you. They're going to make you feel uncomfortable. And so you got to prepare for that just like you would any test, any job interview. So it's just magnified when every single person interviewing you, because they're an NFL head coach or GM. So it's fun. And I remember coming out of it just being like wired with kind of excitement and adrenaline, because it was so much fun to talk ball at the highest levels. And it's all in one building, all in one area. And it's a lot of fun. But to prepare for that, I prepared for it with my agent, prepared for it with coaches, thinking about what questions they'd probably ask, talked to other guys who had been to the Combine to try to get kind of the holistic view as I possibly could. Nowadays, you can go to a quarterback guru and they'll install a whole pro offense for you in 8 weeks, just like you would at a training camp. So there's a whole bunch of more sophisticated ways to go about it, so you can talk even higher level football when you get to the Combine. But for me, it's about 3 phases, right? On the field testing, the explosiveness, the linear speed. On the field skill work, quarterbacks, throwing the rock, don't disqualify yourself. And then the meetings, kind of the real job interviews, the presence, the understanding that they're going to try to make you uncomfortable and try to show off your football IQ and be honest and articulate and be able to see if you can essentially, they're trying to hire you to be a coach. The quarterback is essentially the extension of the coaching staff on the field, and they want to see what you're working with, what you're dealing with. Can you handle it at a really high level? So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have a good one. See you next time.